Hello everyone, I'm Jazz, and today I am doing my August reading wrap-up as well as my September to be read. I read 5 books in August, which I'm super excited about, and let's just talk about them. Woohoo! First book that I completed in the month of August was Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare, which is the first book in the Infernal Devices trilogy. For the few of you that might not know, this series is sort of a prequel slash spin-off series of the Mortal Instruments series. So it takes place in the same world, but is set in the past. It is set in 1878, and it centers around a teenager named Tessa Gray, who through a variety of unfortunate circumstances finds out that the shadow world, which is full of demons and other night creatures, exists. With the help of 2 demon hunting shadow hunters, Will and Jim, she has to discover what has happened to her missing brother, as well as the fact that all the shadow hunters are trying to figure out the mystery of what is going on with these mechanical automaton creatures that are wreaking havoc. Kind of hard to summarize, but you know, I think I did okay. I found Clockwork Angel highly enjoyable. I definitely like how it merges genres. I think it's really cool when people can mix steampunk elements with paranormal elements. I also really liked the characters and how well developed they were, and also that they are fond of sarcastic wit, because there was just a lot of witty banter, and that gives me joy and laughter. I did, however, have a few minor qualms with the story, which kind of kept it from reaching the love it zone. One of them really can't be helped, and it's the fact that this series is meant to be read as its own series. So you basically don't have to read the Mortal Instruments books to read Infernal Devices. You can just read it on its own, which is actually really cool because you might want to do that. However, I am reading the books in the publishing order, so I have read the first 3 Mortal Instruments books already, and now I'm starting this series. When you do that, you realize that you're getting to Infernal Devices, and basically there is a little bit of a reiteration of the world building. And I was kind of like, yeah, I've read those other books. I kind of already know how the shadow world works. But that's really something that is a necessity for the way that Cassandra Clare wanted to present the Infernal Devices books. And actually, in hindsight, I really do feel that it wasn't actually a bad thing for me to reread some of the world building elements, just because a lot of things were definitely clarified for me. However, there were a couple of things that I just couldn't overlook. They just did sort of bug me just a tiny bit. I felt like some elements of certain scenes did not propel the plot or even the romantic plot. They were like scenes where I felt like most of the scene was just there to show how witty the characters were, which the characters are witty and it's great, but sometimes you need to cut that out so that we can get to the plot point. Now, I didn't mind it kind of in the beginning because we did want to see what the personality of the characters were like, but I felt like in other scenes, some of that stuff could have just been cut out and the book would have been totally fine. This book sort of suffers from that occasional YA moment where the author feels the need to describe how beautiful male characters are every 5 seconds. Now, maybe this does happen in the few Mortal Instruments books that I've read, but I just guess I didn't notice it as much in those. I really noticed it in Clockwork Angel, and I was like, as much as I love Jim, because I do love him, even though I feel like that's going to hurt me later, and as much as I really enjoy Will, I don't want to hear how beautiful their eyes are and how fabulous their nose is, or whatever, for a paragraph. But those are really small qualms in the large scheme of things, so I still decided to give this book 4 stars. I'm definitely going to continue on with reading the series, even though I think as of now I like the Mortal Instruments series a little bit more, but I don't know, maybe as I continue reading Infernal Devices I might change my mind. Let's see. I made it my goal this year to reread the Chronicles of Narnia series because I hadn't read it since I was maybe 12 or 13, and I just wanted to re-experience it and refresh my memory on some of the elements of it and actually see how I viewed it now. And I decided to reread this in the actual original publishing order as opposed to the chronological order. Apparently there's a scholarly debate about it, and I would like to weigh in on which way is best to read these books. So I'm reading it in the publishing order because last time I read it in chronological order. So when you're reading it that way, you start with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, in which the Provenzi siblings, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy, discover a world named Narnia in the back of their wardrobe and become embroiled in a battle against the White Witch with the help of this talking lion Aslan and other talking animals and other fun mythical creatures. So I basically read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in one day, and it was a fabulous day because I just really love the fantasy of it. I really love the characters and the lessons that they learn in the story. I definitely saw how much I highly enjoy how C.S. Lewis narrates the tale in the story, and yes, I could go on and on. It's just a 5-star book, so yes, 5 stars for The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And while I was on the Narnia train, I decided to just subsequently go ahead and complete Prince Caspian, in which the Provenzi children return and try to help Prince Caspian reclaim his rightful throne in Narnia. So I highly enjoyed Prince Caspian as well. It is a little different than the story before it, but I think that's actually a good thing, and it definitely has more travel and fight scenes going on in it. Just a wonderful fantasy story. So I gave that one 5 stars as well. The 4th book that I completed in the month of August was my reread of American Gods by Neil Gaiman. This one is actually sort of hard to summarize, so bear with me. American Gods centers around a man named Shadow. He has been in prison for a few years and he's about to be released, but he actually gets released a few days early because his wife is killed in a car accident and he has to go and travel to go to her funeral. While he's on the plane to go to her funeral, he meets this mysterious man named Mr. Wednesday, and Mr. Wednesday offers him a job which he decides to take. He just didn't know this job was going to be quite so much trouble in his life because basically Shadow becomes caught kind of in the middle of a war that is between the old gods who arrived in America from other countries and then everybody forgot about them, and also the new gods, which are like technology and media and things like that, the modern world, etc. And insanity ensues. I hope I did that summary justice. I decided to reread this book because there is a TV series that Starz is making that's going to come up in 2017, and when I started thinking about it, I realized that I didn't remember much of this book from the first time I read it. Actually, when I reread it this time, I went, wow, you forgot most of this book, Chaz. I can totally justify not remembering every element of the story because it is a pretty complex book. There are lots of sort of flashback elements as well as dream sequences that kind of apply to things later in the story, and of course a ton of characters who are all really wacky and kind of cool in a weird way. They're definitely weird, and actually the whole book is kind of really weird in a really good way, at least to me. I have to say that even though I enjoyed this book the first time I read it, I feel like I enjoyed it a lot more on the second read, just because I was actually prepared for it to be kind of complex this time. The first time I read it, my mom had read it before me, and I actually wasn't enjoying some of the early parts of the book, and then my mom said, Jess, just read the book and don't try to figure out what's happening. And that's like the best advice I can give for reading this book, is don't try to figure out what's happening. That will actually just make you really confused. Just read it, enjoy the characters, enjoy the story, and just enjoy what it's being presented to you. The other tip that I personally would give is just knowing a little bit about mythology before you start this. Knowing a little bit more of that when I read it the second time actually did make the book a little bit more fun. So I think that's why I enjoyed it the second time around. Also, there's just a lot of foreshadowing and things in here, and thus when you've read it already and then read it again, you definitely see all that stuff, and it's kind of uber super cool. Really excited to see how the TV series comes out because the casting in it is so fabulous. I can't even tell you how happy I am with the casting, and so I hope the writing is just as good as the casting and the actual source material. Yeah, there are some scenes in here that I'm a little scared to actually see in real life, but you know, that's okay. And if you read the book, you know what I'm talking about. Even though this book doesn't quite beat Neverwhere and Stardust on my Neil Gaiman meter, I still gave this book 5 stars because the ending of it will blow your mind. You know, I like to make a reading playlist every once in a while, and I did make a book playlist for this book, and if you look at it and see some kind of rather odd songs on it, it's probably because those are the songs that are actually mentioned in the book. I tried to incorporate more of those into the playlist, as well as the songs that I just thought went with the book. Knowing me, I will probably add more songs to the playlist every once in a while, because every time I make a book playlist, I can't help myself. I find new music, I have to add a new song on there, so yeah. If you want to check that playlist out, I have left the link to it in the description because it's on YouTube. The last book that I completed in the month of August is The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury, and this is a collection of science fiction short stories that are sort of connected by a prologue and epilogue, which center around a man that meets another man that is covered in tattoos, and these tattoos are sort of magical or futuristic, and they move and tell stories. So the stories are actually the tales that are illustrated on The Illustrated Man. This was on my reading list for 2015, but I just didn't get around to it, and so I finally got around to this. I don't read that many short story books because I have to kind of be in the mood for that, because I usually prefer long stories, but I was in that short story mood, and I did highly enjoy all the short stories. They had really cool, sort of interesting viewpoints on the world and social things that are going on in the world, and also different lessons that the characters that they put in here learn, and it had like some surprises in the plots of the short stories, which were great. Of course, there were maybe 1 or 2 short stories that I didn't like so much, but out of 18 short stories, you know, that's not really a bad ratio of like to dislike. And even the ones I didn't love as much were still pretty good. I got what he was trying to do with them. So, you know, it wasn't a waste to read those. I was pleasantly surprised that I liked this because I discovered it from the unlikely place of watching an episode of Criminal Minds. And, you know, you never know how that's gonna go when you discover books from an unlikely place. I decided to do the thing where I rated one thing on Goodreads and kind of rated another thing in this video, because Goodreads doesn't have half stars. And I decided to rate this 4.5 stars, and I rounded it up to 5 on Goodreads. I had to kind of go half-starry with this one just because I yet again prefer long stories, and also I didn't love every short stories. But I highly would recommend checking this out if you're interested in short stories. On to my to be read for the month of September, and first of all, I'm just gonna go ahead and try to keep on completing my Chronicles of Narnia excursion. So I'm going to try to finish Voyage of the Dawn Treader and Silverchair at least. And then I have started reading The Mermaid Chair by Sue Monk Kidd. So I'm going to complete that. And that's all I really have on my list so far. That was my August wrap up as well as my September to be read, and I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about some of these books and we'll check them out. This is a 2-video week, so I will be posting a second video this week on Saturday evening Central Time. It might be a different day for some of you depending on where you live, but that's when I will be posting. And yes, that is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later. Bye!